Sometimes Hollywood gets it wrong. A movie can be smart, stylish, and bursting with ideas, yet still crash and burn at the box office. Why? Bad marketing, bad timing, or maybe it was just too far ahead of its time. But here's the thing. The audience that missed them then is catching up now. Which forgotten sci-fi flops were secretly great all along? Let's dig into 11 that proved failure at the theater doesn't mean failure forever. Blade Runner 1982. When Ridley Scott's Blade Runner hit theaters in 1982, the hype was huge, but the reception was ice cold. On paper, it had everything. Harrison Ford, fresh off Raiders of the Lost Ark, a visionary director coming off Alien, and a moody, rain-soaked future straight out of Philip K. Dick's imagination. But with a budget of around $30 million and a box office take of barely $41 million worldwide, it was branded a disappointment. Part of the problem? It was nothing like the sci-fi audiences were used to. Instead of flashy space battles, they got a slow-burn detective story with philosophical questions about identity, morality, and what it means to be human. The pacing was deliberate, the tone bleak, and the ending, in its original theatrical cut, was muddied by studio interference, including a voiceover Ford reportedly hated, and an awkward happy ending tacked on after test audiences reacted poorly. Critics at the time were divided. Some called it visually stunning but emotionally distant. Others dismissed it entirely. But as the years passed, home video and director's cut releases gave the film a second life. The reworked versions stripped away the clumsy edits and let Scott's vision shine, a neon-lit nightmare of corporate greed, environmental collapse, and blurred lines between man and machine. Today, Blade Runner is hailed as one of the most influential sci-fi films ever made, shaping everything from The Matrix to Ghost in the Shell. It's studied, quoted, and endlessly rewatched, a film that stumbled in 1982 but sprinted into legend afterward. Sometimes, you need decades to see the future clearly. The Iron Giant 1999. In 1999, Brad Bird's The Iron Giant quietly landed in theaters with the grace of a masterpiece and the box office thud of a disaster, costing about $70 million to make but earning just $31 million worldwide. It was one of the most baffling flops in modern animation history, and the blame, almost entirely on Warner Bros.' marketing department, which barely promoted it. Many people didn't even know it existed until it was gone. The story, based on Ted Hughes's novel The Iron Man, follows a young boy in 1950s America who befriends a massive robot from space. What sounds like a kid's cartoon quickly unfolds into a heartfelt, layered story about friendship, fear, and the paranoia of the Cold War era. It's packed with humor, charm, and a deeply emotional core, the kind of storytelling that sneaks up on you and hits hard. Brad Bird brought a sincerity that was rare in animation at the time. Instead of relying on pop culture jokes, he crafted timeless characters and visual storytelling that felt both classic and fresh. The voice cast, including Jennifer Aniston, Harry Connick Jr., and Vin Diesel as the Giant, delivered pitch-perfect performances that made the film even more unforgettable. Critics adored it. Reviewers called it one of the best animated films of the decade, even comparing it to E.T. in terms of emotional impact. But without a strong marketing push, it barely stood a chance at the box office. The good news? Like the Giant himself, it refused to stay buried. Through DVD sales, cable reruns, and word of mouth, The Iron Giant became a beloved cult classic, with modern audiences recognizing it for what it is, a flawless piece of animated sci-fi storytelling. In 1999, it was a tragedy. Today, it's a treasure. Sunshine 2007. Danny Boyle's Sunshine is one of those films that makes you wonder how something so gripping could fail so badly at the box office. Made for about $40 million, it barely scraped together $32 million worldwide. The concept alone should have hooked audiences. In the not-so-distant future, the sun is dying, and a crew is sent on a last-chance mission to reignite it with a massive nuclear device. It's high-stakes, high-concept sci-fi, but with Boyle's signature human touch. The cast was stellar, featuring Cillian Murphy, Chris Evans, Michelle Yeoh, and Hiroyuki Sanada, all delivering grounded, believable performances. The film's first two acts are pure sci-fi tension, balancing the isolation of space travel with the immense pressure of their mission. It's claustrophobic, beautiful, and scientifically intriguing. But then came the third act twist, a controversial shift into horror thriller territory. Some viewers loved the change in tone, while others felt blindsided. That split reaction hurt word of mouth, and Fox Searchlight's limited marketing didn't help. The movie never got the audience it deserved in theaters. Over time, though, Sunshine built a reputation as one of the most visually stunning sci-fi films of the 2000s. From its blinding, golden cinematography to its haunting score by John Murphy and Underworld, it's a film that sticks with you. Yes, it takes risks, and yes, it divides opinion, but that's part of its brilliance. The best sci-fi doesn't just entertain, it challenges. Sunshine dared to do both, even if it got burned financially. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, 1984. If weird had a home planet, Buckaroo Banzai would be its tourist brochure. Released in 1984, this sci-fi adventure comedy mashed together mad science, rock and roll, alien invasions, and kung fu, and somehow made it all feel like the middle chapter of a story you'd never heard before. It cost about $17 million to make and only earned $6.3 million. The box office didn't just ignore it, it left the theater before the credits finished rolling. The film follows Buckaroo Banzai, a neurosurgeon, physicist, test pilot, and rock star, as he and his eccentric team try to stop evil aliens from the eighth dimension. The plot is unapologetically bizarre, moving from deadpan comedy to pulp sci-fi to surreal set pieces without warning. Director W.D. Richter never slows down to explain the world. He just drops you in and expects you to keep up. This refusal to hold the audience's hand may have been its downfall in theaters, but it's also why the film became a cult favorite. Fans loved its quotable lines, absurd charm, and the feeling that you'd stumbled into a universe far bigger than what the movie could contain. The ending even promised a sequel, which, sadly, never happened. Over the years, Buckaroo Banzai has been celebrated for its fearless originality. It's messy, chaotic, and impossible to categorize, but that's the point. It's the cinematic equivalent of a cult comic book you find in a dusty shop and can't believe no one ever told you about. Children of Men, 2006. When Alfonso Cuarón's Children of Men premiered, critics hailed it as a masterpiece. But audiences? Not so much. With a $76 million budget and a global box office of only $70 million, it was a financial letdown. The irony is that the movie's bleak vision of the future feels even more relevant now than it did in 2006. Set in a world where humanity has become infertile and faces extinction, the film follows Theo Clive Owen, a cynical bureaucrat tasked with protecting a miraculously pregnant woman. Cuarón crafts a story that's equal parts thriller, road movie, and philosophical meditation, all set in a grimy, lived-in dystopia. The production design is impeccable. This is a future that feels uncomfortably real, from the graffiti-covered streets to the militarized checkpoints. What really made Children of Men stand out were its long, uninterrupted takes. Cuarón and cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki created sequences that unfold in real time, like the famous ambush scene and the jaw-dropping final battle through a crumbling city. These weren't just technical flexes. They put the viewer in the middle of the chaos, making the stakes feel immediate and personal. Despite glowing reviews, the marketing struggled to sell such a bleak premise to mainstream audiences. It wasn't a feel-good blockbuster, and it didn't have the flashy action of other 2000s sci-fi hits. But over the years, it's been reappraised as one of the defining films of its era, a chilling, beautifully crafted story about hope in the face of collapse. Edge of Tomorrow, 2014. Cloud Atlas, 2012. When the Wachowskis teamed up with Run Lola Run director Tom Tykwer to adapt David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas, the result was destined to be ambitious, maybe too ambitious. Spanning 6 interconnected stories across centuries, from a 19th century Pacific voyage to a post-apocalyptic future, it was a sprawling meditation on human connection and reincarnation, told with an A-list cast, playing multiple roles across time. The budget was a staggering $102 million, much of it coming from independent financing. The global box office? About $130 million, not nearly enough to cover costs once marketing was added. Critics were split down the middle. Some hailed it as a bold, visionary work. Others dismissed it as overcomplicated and self-indulgent. The film's non-linear storytelling, constant shifts in tone, and unapologetically earnest themes made it a tough sell for casual moviegoers. But for those willing to immerse themselves, Cloud Atlas offered something rare, a genuine cinematic odyssey. Its visual range is breathtaking, from a neon-drenched neo-soul to a fog-covered, crumbling Earth centuries later. What's made it endure is its sincerity. In an age of cynical blockbusters, Cloud Atlas swung for the fences with an unapologetic belief in the power of choice, kindness, and connection across time. It may have stumbled commercially, but for many fans, it's an all-time favorite. the kind of film you revisit and find something new each time. The Thing, 1982. John Carpenter's The Thing is a rare case where a sci-fi horror classic was dismissed on release and only later recognized as a masterpiece. Released in the summer of 1982, it faced two impossible opponents. E.T. had just melted everyone's hearts, and Blade Runner was pulling in the hardcore sci-fi crowd. Against that backdrop, Carpenter's bleak, paranoid Antarctic nightmare never stood a chance. With a budget of $15 million, it only made about $19 million worldwide. Critics were brutal, calling it too gory, too grim, and too nihilistic. Audiences, still high on Spielberg's cuddly Alien, didn't want to watch an alien that turned people into grotesque body horror abominations. But time has been incredibly kind to The Thing. Rob Bottin's groundbreaking practical effects still look disturbingly real today, and Carpenter's slow-burn tension has aged like fine whiskey. The story: a group of scientists trapped in a remote station with a shape-shifting alien that can mimic anyone, is as tight and terrifying as sci-fi gets. Every glance, every hesitation becomes a question of trust. Modern critics now hail it as one of the best sci-fi horror films ever made, influencing countless works from The X-Files to The Hateful Eight. Its initial failure feels almost absurd in hindsight, but maybe it had to wait for the world to catch up. In 1982, it was too much. Now, it's perfect. Ad Astra 2019. James Gray's Ad Astra looked like it had all the makings of a prestige sci-fi hit. Brad Pitt in the lead, a mysterious deep space journey, stunning visuals, and a meditative story about fathers and sons. With a $90 million budget, it was positioned as both an awards contender and a blockbuster. Yet it only pulled in about $135 million worldwide, and once marketing was factored in, it was labeled a disappointment. The problem? The marketing sold it as a high-octane space thriller, leaning heavily on action shots and big explosions. In reality, Ad Astra is a slow, introspective film. It's less about alien encounters and more about isolation, grief, and the emotional cost of exploration. The pacing is deliberate, the action sparse, and the mood contemplative, closer to 2001, A Space Odyssey than Gravity. Brad Pitt delivers one of his most understated performances, playing an astronaut who must travel to the outer reaches of the solar system to find his father, whose doomed mission may be threatening Earth. The journey takes him through visually stunning set pieces, a moon rover chase, a haunting space station rescue, but the heart of the film is in its quiet moments. Critics appreciated its ambition, but audiences expecting non-stop spectacle felt misled. Over time, though, more viewers have come to see Ad Astra for what it truly is: a beautifully shot, deeply human piece of science fiction that dares to slow down and let you feel the weight of space. Under the Skin 2013. Jonathan Glazer's Under the Skin is the definition of a film that was never going to please everyone. With a modest $13 million budget, it only earned about $7 million worldwide. Despite starring Scarlett Johansson at the height of her popularity, it's easy to see why it struggled in theaters. This is a strange, hypnotic, and deeply unsettling piece of sci-fi art. Johansson plays an alien in human form who roams Scotland, luring men into a surreal, pitch-black void. The film blends scripted scenes with hidden camera footage of real people interacting with Johansson, giving it an eerie realism. There's almost no exposition. Glazer trusts the audience to piece together the story from visual cues and atmosphere. The sound design and score by Mika Levi are key to its power, creating a sense of alien detachment that lingers long after the credits roll. Visually, it shifts between stark realism and dreamlike abstraction, making you feel both grounded and disoriented. When it premiered, some viewers walked out. Others hailed it as a masterpiece. That polarization has since given it cult status, with critics now ranking it among the most original sci-fi films of the 21st century. It's not a film you watch so much as experience, unsettling, haunting, and impossible to shake. And there you have it, proof that a box office flop doesn't mean a bad movie. In fact, some of the boldest, weirdest, and most unforgettable sci-fi stories only find their audience years later. Which of these have you already discovered, and which are you adding to your watch list? Drop your favorites in the comments, share this with a fellow movie fan, and remember, sometimes the future just needs a little more time to arrive.